Welcome to the Mystery College Podcast. Today we have Eli Jaxon-Bear with us on the show. He's a remarkable school, the Leela School, and he teaches people many skills for sudden awakening through his lineage with Papaji, through hypnotherapies, and through a very brand new program for psilocybin facilitators. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Glad you have me here, Jake. Glad to address your audience.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what brought you to the story of how you met Papaji, and then also the what it means to be awakened in the sense that you share, describe, teach, and then I'm really curious too about the other modalities that come into play with that, like hypnotherapy or psilocybin.
So, Jake, for me, it really started back when I was a federal fugitive during the Vietnam War, and I was searching for how to stop the genocide. And I didn't know what to do. I had guns and dynamite, but I didn't want to hurt anybody. But I knew I had to give my life to stop the war. And so that was the first requirement for me, was I willing to really give my life to stop the war? And then when I saw that I was, LSD took me to the other side. I woke up and realized my true nature. And I realized that that is the solution that I was searching for. We can't beat them with guns, but we can all wake up to the realization of who we are, and the world will come to peace and freedom. And so that was 1972, and that became my mission. How do I pass this on? And I didn't know how to pass it on. I tried giving people acid. That didn't work. I mean, I did acid circles and ceremonies, but that didn't work. And so I had to find some way to pass it on. And so I searched for teachers. And I found many beautiful teachers. Kala Rinpoche came to my small town in Bolinas in 1978 and had a dream about me and made me the head of his Dharma Center in Marin County, the first Dharma Center for Tibetan Buddhism in Marin County. So I did the Tibetan thing for a while. I learned how to do prostrations and mantras and visualizations, but it didn't take you to awakening. It wasn't what I was looking for. And so then I was, along the way, of course, before that, I met all the gurus, and I saw what they were about, and none of them were speaking of awakening. None of them were speaking of a silent mind. They all had practices and powers. And so some of them, Swami Muktananda had the most powerful powers I'd ever experienced. It was like psychedelic. It was like LSD touching Swami Muktananda. It was electric current. And it created incredible, phenomenal sensations. But it wasn't about freedom and silence. It was about powers. Siddha yoga. Siddha means power. And so I encountered these different lineages along the way. The one that did speak of silence was Zen Buddhism. And so Zen Buddhism, it's about having a direct realization of one hand clapping, where your mind stops. Beautiful. But when I went and discovered Zen Buddhism, they were all practicing. They weren't waking up, they were practicing. That's the problem. Practicing never leads to awakening. And so, although the oldest Zen master at the time awarded me with his Zen teaching fan, giving me permission to teach the Dharma in Choshoji Zen Temple in Kyushu, in Japan. But that wasn't, and actually I had a Dharma debate in a monastery in Japan where I said that LSD wakes you up. And this monk who was practicing and practiced his whole life and had a whole monastery practicing, we had a debate. And it was mind-blowing. And at the end, when I won the debate, he took me out to a power spot and did a chant. And I fell at his feet in prostration, and the world disappeared. And there was a kind of awakening. And it was celebrated by the monastery. We all got to drink beer and sing songs until midnight that day. But that didn't last. It was a good experience, but it didn't last. It wasn't permanent. And so wherever I went, I would find the limitations until I met my final teacher. And And he had no teaching. He had no practice. Didn't tell me to do anything. Didn't tell me to postpone anything. He simply said, stop. Stop everything. And I did. And in the first moment I met him, I knew this is what I've been searching for. I've been on a spiritual path for 18 years. It ended in 1990. So when that finished, he then sent me back into the world. At that time, I was training therapists. He knew that. So he said, let both therapist and client wake up. And that became my mission. And that's what the Leela School is an expression of. And so along the way, when I couldn't do it with psychedelics and the gurus weren't working, I had to try to do it myself. And so that's when I learned how to be a therapist. I learned how to do clinical trance, and I learned how to do, and then I learned the Enneagram, which was so invaluable, although not the way it's taught, but its original essence, because it's taught as the Enneagram personality. That's not it. So everything you've read about the Enneagram is not that. And so, but combining the true Enneagram of liberation with the depth of waking up from trance induction, you can wake up from the trance of suffering. And that became what I was teaching until I met my final teacher in 1990. So that was a decade of teaching at Esalen and in Europe and like that. And that's how we got here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, beautiful. That's an amazing journey from all the way from being in the Vietnam War and seeking solace and relief and truth, and then coming all the way like with three spiritual teachers for over 18 years. That's phenomenal. And it's just amazing to see you share, speak, breathe these teachings, and to, as I listen to you holding space, holding presence, I think that I hope viewers get to really tune into that. Yeah. So one thing I'd love to lean into as well is the is the and that in some sense there is no teaching. There's nothing but the presence. On the other hand, there's also like methodologies that may help us come back to ourselves or back to our awareness or our awakeness, like hypnotherapy or some of the other tools or Enneagram. So I was wondering if we could kind of cover a few of those tools for folks so that they can come to that same state of realization in themselves in their own way.
So the way to come to start is you first have to know what you want. Most people don't know what they want. They never really seriously ask themselves, what do I really want in this life? What will I die for? What will I live for? That's the essential question. Until that question is answered, all the rest is just trance walking, sleepwalking, believing you're awake, and looking for solutions in the future. But once you know what you really want, and that's first you have to see all the conditioned wants. You want a family, you want success, you want a career, you want money, you want children, you want pay, whatever it is. All the conditioned wants of your biology and your environment are all stacked up. And those are the ones that you live by. People live by wanting more, better, or different. More success, more family, better children, better, whatever it is, more, better, and different parents, different children, different circumstances. And that's what people chase their lives because they don't know truly what they want, because none of it makes you happy. You have moments of happiness, moments where it's blissful, moments of joy, but they never last because they're on a ground of suffering, because you don't know your own nature. And so first you have to find out, what do you really want bottom line, deeper than all of the animal conditioned wants, deeper than the society wants. You, this intelligent, loving consciousness that you are. What do you really want? That's the first step. When you've answered that question, quite naturally, you start to see, what are you serving? Are you serving what you really want or something else? If it's what you really want, you have to give it 100%. So you see how much of your time is given to all these other wants and desires and fears and attractions. And you have to be willing to look at yourself and say, okay, is this how I want to spend my time? Sure, it's fun to hang out and to do whatever it is I'm doing. Yeah, it's fun to have sex and do whatever I'm doing. Yeah, it's fun to whatever. But is that how I want to spend my time and energy? Then you become one-pointed. When you're one-pointed, you have the possibility to actually make a choice. Before that, you don't have the integrity to make a choice because you've already chosen all these myriad other distractions and fears, desires. So now you brought it all back to one-pointedness. You can choose. Do you choose the life of suffering you're in and trying to make it better? Or do you wake up from that trance of suffering fully to realize who you are? Once that choice is made, everything else will take care of itself. If you need hypnotherapy, you'll get hypnotherapy. If you need the Enneagram, you'll get the Enneagram. Everything will be provided from that willingness and that choice to be true to yourself.
So, what does it take for someone to come to that state of one-pointedness where they are willing to release their conceptions of the mind, their conceptions of societal conditioning, mental conditioning, cultural conditioning, and and seek themselves in that place of awareness where their true nature lies? What
Yes.
what does the process of release look like?
First, you have to realize that you're suffering. Most people don't realize they're suffering. They think, oh, I'm pretty good. I've got a good life. I got a wife and kids. I got and I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. That's suffering with a trance on top of it. You take it with the trance and you realize, are you unhappy and unfulfilled? And have you always been basically unhappy and unfulfilled? And if that's true, then are you going to continue down that path? Or you're willing to stop and go in a different direction? And that's an enormous choice because all the momentum is to continue getting washed downstream. Hang out with the same people you're hanging out with, doing the same things you're doing, and making it a little better. Because you can always have a better life or a worse life. But if you realize that you're suffering and you realize you've never been fulfilled and you want fulfillment, you want to finally rest in your own being and live as your own alive, intelligent consciousness that you are, then you're willing to risk everything else. Most people aren't. Most people say yes, but I've got to pay the rent, but who's going to who's going to take care of the kids, but I got to go shop. All these things to say no, but. And those are all distractions and sellouts of your own desire for freedom, for your own desire for love. See, the thing is, it's like whenever you have a yes, but who's going to take care of the rent? Who do you think takes care of it now? You believe, every one of us believes that we're in charge. We know what's going on. We know what the deal is, and we're taking care of things. But the truth is, when you're out of the way, things get taken care of much better. When you're empty and open, things flow naturally. It's as if love won't take care of the babies. Is what the mind says, oh no, who'll take care of the babies? Who'll feed the food? I've got to do that. As if you are more competent than love. So then you see, oh, wait. You surrender to love. Let love take care of the babies. Let love feed the family. Let love live this life. Let love speak these words. Let love breathe this breath through this form. And it's a form of happiness and fulfillment and love. And whatever might appear, good news and bad news, it's all from the ground of love instead of from the ground of suffering. So there are good times and bad times will still appear and disappear, but the ground of suffering is gone.
Ground of suffering's gone. Hmm. Hmm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, and Yeah, I'm also wondering too about like if we were to investigate this through, say, the like a hypnotherapy modality to help guide someone or guide ourselves into a state of awareness, into a state of realizing, not just going into trance, but realizing our existing trances, our existing conditionings, and seeing, so if someone in earnest does want their true nature, or to realize their true nature and to release the attachments to their identity or ego or dualistic thinking, what's like a form of inquiry or state of mind or state of presence alignment that someone can come into, um, maybe not necessarily as a practice, but as a conscious state of being that
Yes.
is continually refined.
You can always see the trance that you're in. So you don't have to make up a new trance. You just see the trance you're in. And the trance that we're in, we have a global trance, we have a cultural trance, we have a family trance, and we have a personal trance. So if you look at the global trance, we're living in a capitalist world where money is God, where it's fine to burn a cross, but it's illegal to burn money. It's federal crime if you burn a dollar bill, but it's not a problem if you can burn a cross. That's because money is the true religion. And so, given that, that becomes the backdrop that we never examine, and the consequences of that, of worshiping money, of needing money, wanting money, having money, spending money. It's all part of a mind trance that we're all collectively in, and you can wake up from it. Or just take the days of the week. Why is today Wednesday? What does that mean? Because we have given names to the days, each day seems to have a different meaning in its relationship to the other days. We're looking forward to the weekend, and now it's going to be. That was made up by the Babylonians. Babylon named the days of the week based on their deities. And so every deity had a day. So there's the sun's day, there's the moon's day. And in Babylon, on the moon's day, which was called Sin, the moon's god was Sin, on Sin's day, it's inauspicious to go outside. And so everybody stays home on Sin's day. And guess what? That's our weekend. And so we're living in a trance of Babylon that we never consider. Just that's the way it is. But what if in this moment, for a moment, the days of the week lost their names? What are the implications? How would that change our world if suddenly every day is exactly like every other day? There are no weekends. There is no Sunday and Monday. It changes everything. Because our whole factory system and capitalism is based on having a time and space formula with a grid work that you know what's happening step by step. Changes everything. The Aymara people in Bolivia don't see the past as behind them and the future ahead of them like we do. They see the future is behind them and unknown, and the past is in front of them. So when they're looking forward, they're looking into the past. They see what's already happened. They don't see what's coming. That's the future. If you change your orientation that way, Western civilization would not have happened. Because Western civilization is based on a forward future movement, which is just a trance of how we've organized the random world.
I love it. I love it. And it's making me think too about other types of trances to be deconstructed. We've talked about some of the more global trances, things that have been trances for thousands of years, constructs like calendar systems, or or directions, or these things, these labels that we use to organize and construct a consensus of reality. But that consensus of reality is not reality itself. They're signposts or fingers pointing at things. And it's one thing as an intellectual exercise, but it's another thing experientially when one can experience release of this, or really like on a energy frequency or a state of awareness. in a state of
Yes.
realization.
So what if, as an experiment right now, we just make believe that everything can stop right here? Everything. Everything that we knew from the past, everything we imagine is coming, just stops for a moment. And past and future just disappear for a moment. And then there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to get. You don't have to be bitter. You can stop right here as you are and allow yourself to sink into the enormity without boundaries. And as you sink in, you can feel so good as layers fall away, like shedding icebergs. And you continue to just be still, sink in even deeper until your mind becomes so quiet. It can feel so good when you have no thoughts at all because your mind is at rest right now. That's right, at peace right now. And in this rest and peace, you're awake, you're intelligent, you're aware. And this awareness can stop where it is, and something even deeper can open, and you can fall in, something even deeper, unknown. It can feel so good. When you fall in and there's no bottom, there's no sides, there's no top, no boundaries anywhere. And from here, you can really start to ask yourself, what is my life about? Why am I here? What do I give my life to? That's very good. And you can start to notice from here, what's alive in your heart? Beyond thought, beyond dreams or imagination. Is there something deeply alive in your heart right now? If you can't find it, that's fine. You know the direction now, in. And if you do find it, so beautiful. Now you know something more deeply than any thought. You find something trustworthy beyond thought. That's really good. You're doing really well. And then whatever is needed will arise in its own time. Whatever tests come will come. Whatever challenges come will come. All the teachings will appear in the right time because they're all coming from this place of your heart. It's only you testing yourself. That's really good. Because you're now able to hear this without hearing. It's landing somewhere deeper because your mind is quiet. Your heart is open. And this is the possibility of how to live a life. So when this state changes, as all states will, is it possible that what's realized doesn't come and go? And that you don't come and go? Eyes open or closed doesn't matter. What's in front of you will change. People, places, circumstance. What if you don't change? What if you stay as you are in this moment, regardless? That's very good. You're doing really great, Jake. I'm so glad. Your eyes can open. You can. Yes. Yes. I'm so glad. So beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that gift.
Mm.
Thank you. And I hope others were able to follow along as well, as long as they're not driving or they're in a safe space.
Thanks.
Yeah. And One thing that occurred to me in that space too was the holding space for others. Sometimes having a like the Leela School. You were before the show started. You were mentioning me that Leela is the Sanskrit word for play or being outside of the samsara, the cycle. So in a sense, the exercise we just did together was a way of stepping outside that cycle.
Yes.
I was wondering about the role of a teacher or someone or a coach or someone who can share or therapist uh, a perspective or experience guides an experience outside that cyclical samsaric circle and into a state of Leela or play. What does
Depends
that look like?
depends on the depth of the teacher or the guide or the coach or whoever you call it. You can't take anyone deeper than you've gone yourself. The tendency is to hear it and conceptualize it and then teach concepts like emptiness and oneness and we're all one or whatever it is. These become spiritual concepts that are used to substitute for genuine depth. And so someone once asked my teacher, why are there so many false teachers? And he said, because there's so many false seekers and everyone needs a guru. And so a nicer way of saying that is it's like, whatever stage you're in, you'll find someone appropriate for that stage. But generally, since you're in a stage and you're finding someone appropriate for that stage, it means they haven't fully awakened either, usually. And so they'll take you as far as they can go, but then it becomes conceptual. So the way you tell the truth of a teacher is it bringing you to silence? Is it bringing you to an open heart? Is it bringing you to no practice, no doing, and no concepts? All concepts are a transinduction, just like the days of the week is a concept. Without that concept, the days of the week don't exist. But with that concept, they're very real. We all give our lives to it. So people give their life to concepts. And then in the spiritual community, there are spiritual concepts of, it's all a teaching, or why did I create this in my life? Or all that's just unnecessary chatter. A silent mind answers its own questions from the heart.
The silent mind answers its own questions from the heart. And that, like a, and I appreciate the point you made about the seekers and teachers. It's like we are able to only see in others what we have in ourselves. Um, and if we're not seeing our true nature, then it's difficult to resonate or see the true nature in others.
That's
And
true, Jake. But wait, that's true. But it's not about seeing it in ourselves and seeing it in others. It's about realizing directly for once and final time who you are, what you are, and then staying true to that and being that and living from that. Then it's not about seeing one another. There are no seeings and this and that. It's just being yourself.
mm, I appreciate the semantics. Like it's not like seeing, hearing, feel, touching. It's realizing, it's
Yes.
being. I appreciate that because like there's a lot more directness or truthfulness in being or realizing.
Yes. Otherwise, it's a concept of someone doing something. I'm going back to find my emptiness, or I'm going back to find my whatever it is. The I is the only problem. The I is the only obstacle to true full realization is the belief that this I is doing something. And that I only appears when there's something to do or something from the past or something from the future. It's an imaginary I. But just like the days of the week are imaginary, but we live our lives with them. And this I that's imaginary, we live our life with it until you're willing to see through it. And when you see through it, you realize who you really are. And then it's not somebody who has this realization and takes it to someone else. It's the realization itself is the expression of itself.
Mm. So the realization of itself is the expression of itself. And hmm, Well, I wonder what I'm not catching there. I isn't catching what the realizing, the beingness is catching.
Yes, that's very good. And when
Interesting.
you noticing that distinction, then you can make a choice. Which are you going to follow? You're going to follow your head as it continues this thing, or are you going to follow something deeper?
Hmm. So this is very fun.
Yeah, yeah, this is real fun. This is now we're getting aliveness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering too, or there's I again, semantics aside, like when like language as a construct has its own trances embedded in it, such as that. And I wonder as well what it takes for someone to. Well, sometimes people get lost in the semantic of, oh, I'll never say I again because then that will bring up my ego. Um, what are ways
Actually,
for folks to?
there was a commune that I knew in the old days
Oh yeah.
called the A God commune, and they all realized that I is the problem, and so they wouldn't say I anymore. And so they would talk to each other and say, well, this one wants to speak my truth to you. It's like, it's a joke. It's like, it's not the word itself, it's the identity. It's the false identity that this is
Mm,
me. And when that identity is seen through and you don't touch it, then the identity can be here or not, but it's not being taken personally.
mm. As long as the identity is being seen through, not to see or to, in the sense to know, but like that once it's realized, its transparency is realized, its impermanence is realized, and that it's just one of many states of being,
Yes.
and it's not the
It's
entirety
not
of
who
it.
you are. It's not who you are.
Mm.
Period. End of story. And there's no intricacies, there's no moving parts. Just don't touch it for a minute. And what's left? Yes, this is it. Yeah, shining. Yes, changes everything. Suddenly, the whole normal world isn't normal anymore. You are what's normal. You are what's natural, not normal. Natural's very different from normal.
Natural is very different than normal. I think collectively, more and more people are aware of that every day.
Yes, that's right. This is an awakening, as the world is in such horror. The doors of liberation are open. It's time for everyone to wake up. It's the only solution. Nothing else will do it.
Hmm. I'm a bit lost for words because I'm experiencing what you're sharing and the gift you're offering, and it's beautiful. And I'm excited for viewers, listeners to tune into this as well. And so I'd love to invite folks to keep tuning in, feeling, and and Eli, like, what are some ego constructs that people tend to have as they're going through, like once they've touched this and
Yes.
and perhaps they could, because one can touch this and still not quite see through the transparency or the impermanence of the self, and in that sometimes you can develop ego structures to protect them.
Exactly, because the one who touches it or for a moment, that's still the egoic identity that touches something beyond itself and then comes back. And now it remembers that, and it knows that, but it's still back as somebody who had that experience. That's the identity that finishes. Then there's realization that's deeper than any thought, deeper than circumstance. It's a certainty. It's something you know deeper than you know your name. You know it deeper than the next breath. And then that naturally expresses itself. But until then, as you said, people have tastes and then they come back. And then they have tastes and they come back. It's like each taste is a kind of samadhi. Samadhi means bliss. And so traditionally the story is, each taste is a samadhi, and that's a dipping into the well. You throw the bucket into the well of bliss, you bring it back and drink, and you have this extraordinary, blissful, intelligent, loving experience, and then you get thirsty again. But eventually you throw the bucket into the well, and it's finished. But until that time, each time you have this taste, the possibility is either to deepen from it and learn from it, or to conceptualize it and make it into an object of me. Now, I have this experience. I have this realization. I know myself as emptiness. Therefore, those are the traps. The traps are the subtle thoughts to re-identify as an entity separate from the experience that you had. Because love doesn't say that. Intelligent love is love as it is. It doesn't have to say, oh, that was my experience and now I'm. Love is prior to that. Intelligence is prior to that. And so it's just the subject-object relationship, as long as you're talking about grammar. And subject-object relationship means me and it. That's the primary duality of existence. Me and it. Whether the it is the outside world or the it is the blissful interior of my experiences. It's still me and it. But when me and it collapses, when there's no me and no it, then there's only I, as I am, love as I am, intelligent, conscious love as I
Mhm. Mhm. And going back to the points you're sharing about once you go deeper than the label of one's name or egoic structures, in the well analogy, at first maybe we drink from the well with our hands, or we scoop up a bit with our bucket, pull that up, but then eventually we there comes a there's always a choice of throwing away the bucket and being that well.
am. Yes, that's it. Because you already are. It's not like something new is being created. You're simply returning to yourself. You're returning to your origin, your true source.
Hmm. Hmm. And I'm wondering too what it means when one chooses to spend time with folks or teachers who have who have who are aware of their well, who are awakened to their well, and have their bucket thrown out. They are that. Um, what is the value in seeking out teachers in that process, like yourself, your spouse, who are awakened in their well?
If you're called from your heart, you follow your heart. So before I found my teacher, I was already awake from LSD. I was already acknowledged by the spiritual world as being given a Zen teaching fan and running a Tibetan center. I was already written some books. My books were successful. I had a partnership with a true goddess, my love of my life, that we've been together now for 50 years. And I had everything. I had money. I had a great house in Mill Valley, but we were called. It wasn't finished. I had to leave it all behind. And in doing that, preparing to go to find my teacher in India, I had to examine myself. What am I willing to give? And so the first thing I looked at was sex, easy. I've had enough sex. I love sex, great, great partners, lots of sex or great times, but it was enough. I could give up sex. Money was not a problem. I'd live with nothing. I'd spent my last 3 cents in Peru and lived just fine. Uh, so then I started looking, and so then I said, okay, marijuana would be very hard. Chocolate was really hard. But I had to face chocolate and then marijuana. Those were my two big ones. I said, okay, whatever it takes. But then I had to look at my wife, my partner. She wasn't my wife at that point, but maybe she was. And I started looking, okay. And the truth was, I couldn't leave my love for her. If that's what it took to wake up, I couldn't do it. I could do it for her sake. If that's what it took for her to wake up, if she needed for me to stop, I would, but not for myself. And then when I met my teacher, he said, how could you give up love? I told him that. I told him all my things. And I said, I'm willing to go chocolate, marijuana, sex with my wife. And then he said, I couldn't give up my love for her. He said, how could you? Your love itself. And I asked for marijuana. He said, well, Shiva smokes. And that blew my mind. Shiva smokes marijuana? I said, oh, yeah. He said, Shiva's lover, beloved father wouldn't let them get married because he smoked marijuana. And so she threw herself in the Ganga and drowned. And Shiva was so heartbroken, he went and brought her up out of the river. And as he was rising with her into the heavens, tears fell out of Shiva's eyes and they hit the Ganga. And that's where everybody goes every year for the Kumbh Mela, because that's where Shiva's tears hit the Ganga. And everyone's going there to get the taste of the immortality. So this is the story he told me when I told him I smoked marijuana. So he was a genius. He was an absolute genius. He was total rapport, total empty, intelligent, conscious love, looking at me and loving me just as I am.
Mm. And then and that reminds me of the term Papaji, like it's like a there's like a fatherly love as
Yeah,
well.
well, when I first met him, I didn't know what to call him. His name was HWL Punja, but I couldn't call him that. I couldn't call him Punjaji. Punjaji is a polite way of saying Mr. Punja. So I asked him the first day, I said, can I call you Babaji? He said, sure. And so for the first week or so, I called him Babaji. And I wrote to my partner, Tony, at the time, and said, Babaji is giving me these transmissions. It's incredible. And when the first people showed up for his satsang, because I was the only one there, the people started to come. He said, bring them and showed them how to get here. And I referred to him as Babaji. And so those first satsangs, he was called Babaji by everybody. But I ate my meals with him. And while I saw his granddaughters were cooking our food, they called him Papaji. I thought, oh, that's right. That's much better. And so I called him Papaji from then on.
Love it. Love it. Very, so much reverence. That's a beautiful thing. And I think it's something that some people might miss out on in the Western mind, or there's some hindrances with teacher relationships. Or
Well, most teachers have abused it, in our time, it turns into sex cults. I mean, and it's quite obvious with a lot of them, One of the things my teacher said, a warning, anybody who gives himself a spiritual name, don't get close to them. Because only your teacher or your student gives you your spiritual name. You give yourself a spiritual name. This is just the ego naming the ego. And if you look at the teachers who have given themselves their own spiritual name, it's pretty obvious. And what's obvious is that they set up sex and power cults.
yeah, I can definitely see that. It's ego. If it's coming from ego and it's a shell or a protection. So yeah, I wanted to also explore a little bit about the psychedelic therapeutic program your school hosts, as that's like a very burgeoning uh, scope of practice. It's in its renaissance, and it's I think Oregon of all places in the United States, I think it's that and maybe Colorado are on the very, very forefront of this. So it's really exciting what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, it was my mission back in 1972 was to turn the world on with LSD like I had experienced it. I thought if everybody could have what I had, the world would come to peace and freedom. But I couldn't do it with psychedelics back then. And so I went through these other versions. But now it's possible. And Oregon is the first one in the country. And we were one of the first programs in Oregon to offer a certification program to become a psilocybin facilitator, where we integrate in the sacred, the traditional, and the modern, and show you the proper set and setting for someone to have a true depth experience, because it's all about set and setting. Set and setting means your mindset going into it and the environment you're in. When those are set properly, there's a possibility for a true transcendence. And if there isn't a true transcendence, there's always some healing that comes out of it, because the mushroom itself is an intelligent healer. There's no doubt. I mean, the mushroom's consciousness is mind-blowing. Well, obviously. That's where the word comes from.
Oh yeah, That makes sense. Yeah, and even handling plant medicines, there's just like so much intelligence in them. Even if I haven't tried one before, if I've held it, like there's just many layers there of intelligence that uh not maybe not like loquaciously or with words, but with presence or energy or like a deep understanding and realization.
Takes you beyond this dimension of time and space. This dimension of time and space is an illusion. It's part of the trance that we live in. And the mushroom will definitely take you beyond this trance of time and space. Then you get to see what's on the other side. What's real? Where am I? What's going on? It's a whole different realm. And so this mushroom has been around longer than humans have. And one of my acquaintances, old friends at Esalen, Terence McKenna, had the theory that the first humans, when we came down out of the trees and started hunting our animals in the savannah, we hunt through the tracks and the droppings, and magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, grow in the manure of animals. So how would it be possible that we would have seen them for those many times and never eaten one?
I like that. Because tracking is such a huge component of our hunter-gatherer makeup. And yeah, that's what they like is animal trackings.
Yeah.
Huh?
And so there's mushrooms growing up in it. Oh, might as well taste one. And it could be that that's what set off our whole intelligent revolution as humans.
Mm, I love that theory. Is it called the stoned ape hypothesis, or is that like some new term?
I don't know what it's called. I remember just Terrence telling me about it in the hot tubs at Esalen one day when we were smoking a joint. But it's written up somewhere. There are people who have checked it.
Yeah. Oh, that's too cool. That's too cool. Hmm. One thing it's probably come up before for you is there's some conceptions about or concerns about like certain psychedelics or and in certain people's brains not being as adequate to handle those types of experiences. I'm wondering what the thoughts might be. Like
We
if not chemically, I'm wondering about like if some people might not have the um, foundation or space environment or an internal work ready for
Sure.
that type of process. I'm curious what your thoughts on that might be.
Well, first of all, everybody who goes through our program, or we also do journey sessions for people, you have to go through a medical questionnaire because we need to know what's going on with your brain chemistry. And there are certain, definitely don't do it, don't do psychedelics if this is the situation. And so it's not so much about your spiritual awareness, it's more your psychology. And so certain mental conditions may not be well served here. And paranoid schizophrenics, not a good idea. And so you have to be careful in screening. And that's part of our training for how to train facilitators is you have to know what to look for.
Absolutely, and know who something's medicine for, to maintain the integrity of the medicine too.
That's right.
Right. Like some people, not everyone's shamanic journey or journey to back to self, it looks the same. But it's great that there's to have as much of an assortment of tools to arrive there effectively and safely. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what we do in our psilocybin program. We first teach you how to be a true friend and have a quiet mind and an open heart. And that's the heart of all of our trainings. How to actually show up as a quiet mind and an open heart. That's the first step. And then you start to have the skillful means to deal with whatever's in front of you, both to set up the setting and then for the integration afterwards, because those are really crucial.
Mm. I appreciate you brought the word skillful means. It also kind of reminds me of the word expedient means, and finding opportunities that are and developing skillful means, but also expedient means for as a teacher or as a facilitator or someone on a journey. I think about expedient means in like the Buddhistic sense, where adapting the teachings for the context, language, time in a way that's transferable to someone depending on their level of awareness or consciousness. Um,
That's skillful means, is to be able to meet people where they are.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah. So expedient means same thing, I guess. So it's really, if someone is in a deep sleep, you don't rudely wake them up. You see, most people are babies and they're sleepwalking. And when you can see that, it's like you don't go around poking them. But people who are ready, who are called, you then have an open heart and a quiet mind, and you can meet them where they are.
Hmm, fantastic.
But that's another great tendency of our culture, is we're truthing everybody all the time. Like, oh man, that's just your fixation, or oh no, that's your thought, or oh, why you? It's like, that's crazy. It's only fixation judging fixation. So that conversation is not necessary ever.
Judging fixation.
Yeah, judging someone for being asleep. It's like the whole world is asleep. But if suddenly you have an awakening and a realization, you can start to say, oh, that's just because you're just doing that because, forget all that.
I see. I see. Yeah, because it's one of
Yeah,
the guardrails, if you will.
good.
Okay. Yeah. And so, is there any last pieces of advice or resources you'd point folks towards who are looking to come to their full awakening and self-realization?
Well, that's what I did the first thing when we started speaking together. I don't know if you remember, Jake, but the first thing I started with was, what do you want?
Yeah.
And going, so that's their question. They can replay that part of our talk. And so really it's about staying true to your heart. But you can't stay true to your heart until you know your heart. And you can't know your heart until you're really willing to give everything to it. Otherwise, it's heartbreak. Otherwise, you're cheating on your heart. You're betraying your heart and not even conscious of it. Just that's the way I'm living my life. I didn't have any awareness that I was doing that. But when you notice you're suffering and you're willing to end it and you start looking in the right direction, you can stay true to love, true to silence. Thinking about it will never give you a solution.
Hmm.
Questioning. You think, oh, I've got to, I'm not sure if I should do this or that. Neither one. That's all in your head. Should I do A or B? No.
Hmm. And so then it coming back to that question, what do I really want? And
Yes.
staking a big flag there and keeping
Yes.
focus there, keeping that, let that be the one pointedness until your true
That's
one
right.
pointedness comes into awareness.
That's it. Putting that stake in the ground and saying, I am here and I'm not moving. Come and get me. All
Mm.
my fears, all my terrors, all my nightmares, all the monsters under the bed, come and get me. All my traumas, all my bad relationships, all my failures, come and get me. I'm not moving. I am here. And then whatever has to come will come. And whatever doesn't, doesn't. You don't have to look for it. And you stay as you are. And you'll naturally deepen into yourself.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mhm.
So, yeah. And thank you so much for your time.